Hey guys, I'm Digit, and today I'll be bringing you a Sorcerer class starter guide. The Sorcerer is a wielder of devastating elemental magic, able to clear a horde of enemies with just a few spells. The Sorcerer is potentially going to be one of the fastest and strongest AoE classes in the game. I'd like to introduce you to some tips and build concepts for the Sorcerer to help give you a strong start when you begin your adventure. Let's start by introducing a build focused around Chain Lightning to get past that pesky early game. The early game is mostly about speed, so I would recommend using Arc as our first basic skill. Arc is able to deal with everything in your path relatively quickly. The other basic abilities have a bit of a focus on single target, which isn't what we want right now. Our main source of damage will be our core skill, Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning is strong versus both packs and in single target due to its ability to bounce not only between enemies, but also off of the Sorcerer. This allows it to be used versus elites and bosses incredibly well, making it the best choice out of all core skills at this stage of the game. For defensives, we'll be putting a point in Teleport, Ice Armor, and Frost Nova, and taking Frost Nova all the way to Mystical Frost Nova. The reason for this is due to the passive's ability to apply Vulnerability. Vulnerability nets us a 20% damage increase, which is applied to everything we hit with Frost Nova. Teleport is our obvious mobility choice, and Ice Armor is there for that added tankiness. Next on our list is Lightning Spear, bringing in another source of AoE and damage while it's active. We'll take Lightning Spear to its passive, Invoked Lightning Spear, for that extra bit of CC. It's around this time you'll want to be heading off and doing your class quests in order to unlock the Sorcerer's enhancements. These are unlocked at level 15 and should be done as soon as possible. Once we've unlocked our first enhancement, we'll place Chain Lightning in our first enhancement slot. This just gives us better damage versus elites, bosses, and is honestly better than most other enhancements we can choose at this point. We'll round the build out with passives such as Align the Elements and Protection. These are quite powerful, allowing us to maintain barriers with our defensive skills and giving us DR versus elites. At level 20 is where I'd personally transition into using Frost Shards. The reason for this is the early aspect we can pick up, mixed with its enhancement, creates a combination that is unmatched in AoE and damage. I also believe this build transitions into the mid and late game portions of the game so much better. With Frost Shards and its enhancement, we can passively cast Frost Shards at foes around us that are frozen. This works incredibly well with Frost Nova as it freezes on top of applying vulnerability, effectively giving Frost Nova a damage component. The defensives we pick up are going to be the same as the leveling build. So everything you're already used to, Teleport for mobility, Ice Armor for barriers, and Frost Nova for the CC. Now Frost Shards are great damage on their own, but when we also pick up the mastery skill Blizzard, we slowly start applying chills to everything it hits, and when enemies get enough stacks of chill, they also become frozen as well, giving us a constant stream of CC and damage. As you know, we're using Frost Shards as our first enhancement. After that, as our second enhancement, we'll want to take Firebolt. This might sound strange, but later when we pick up passives like Devouring Blaze that increases our critical strike damage by 30% against burning enemies, and Fury Surge that increases our mana regeneration by 30% for 3 seconds after killing a burning enemy, this starts to make sense. Our keystone choice will be Shatter. Shatter gives us a huge increase in AoE damage, basically allowing for what is essentially a domino effect. When one unfreezes, they'll rapidly hit each other for 25% of the damage they took while frozen. This should wipe the entire field of enemies. I'll have the build in the description of the video, so you know exactly what to choose. Since we'll be sticking with this build for the rest of the game, the link to the full build will also be posted. Now, we can't get anywhere without a few aspects. I've decided on 3 essential aspects to grab early, one for our Frost Shards build, a defensive that's easy to grab early, and one that I think should be picked up regardless, but is only obtainable at around level 35. If you've been following the build in this guide, your first pickup should be the aspect of Piercing Cold. It's easily obtained early from Dead Man's Dredge in Fractured Peaks. We start in this region, so we can grab it probably at around level 15, as a way to transition easily from Chain Lightning into Frost Shards. This aspect just straight up turns Frost Shards into an amazing skill, allowing Frost Shards to pierce targets. The next easiest aspect to obtain that is good for adding a little extra defense to our class is Aspect of the Protector. I'd pick this up while we are still in Fractured Peaks from the dungeon Lost Archives. Of the Protector gives us a barrier when we damage elites. This barrier lasts 10 seconds. It's a great way to grab a little extra survivability when encountering elites. As an extra tip, this aspect also affects world bosses. Finally, the last aspect we'll want is the aspect of control, which can be obtained in a dungeon called Sunken Library, which itself is located in the region of Kyrgyzstan, a region I believe is accessible at level 35, so we'll want to grab this when we can. Of Control increases our damage by a percentage when enemies are under the effect of any kind of crowd control. Seeing as we apply this relatively easily through the use of Frost Nova, it's great to have. I'll briefly go over certain item stats you'll want to keep an eye out for during your journey. While leveling, this doesn't matter too much early game considering the rate at which you'll be replacing gear, but it's still important to note for mid and late game. We'll want things that increase our damage to vulnerable targets, as this is one of, if not the best stat for us, doubly so as we can apply it easily with Frost Nova. Other than this, you'll also want to pick up items that increase your damage to close and crowd controlled. This just increases our power over frozen enemies, so we'll also want to keep out for core skill damage, critical strike chance, and cold damage. There are a few general tips I want to go over that I think are necessary to keep on top of while progressing. The first two being mandatory, while the last two are semi-optional. Healing potions and salvaging are a must while progressing. You'll want as many materials as possible for the late game, and healing potions upgrades are just an excellent way to keep yourself alive, so try and attempt to keep on top of both of these while progressing. You'll also want to keep an eye out for Lilith statues and completing each region's renown board. You should attempt to fit these in during the main quest and side quests, and while finding ingredients to upgrade your health potions. You could also opt into doing both the Lilith statues and renown after the campaign. I'm of the opinion that these will likely be essential for progressing into higher world tiers, but this is speculation on my part. Still, Lilith statues and the renown board give permanent account buffs, so the power transition to other characters is definitely worth investing time into. Now to finish off, I have two potential builds that, although may be speculative due to their in-game nature, might be worth looking at or trying if you enjoy testing or just trying out something different. First, we have a finalized version of the Ice Shards build that we've been using thus far. You are looking mostly to finish off the build with certain aspects that add power, such as the Shadowed aspect. We'll also want the unique legs, Ice Heart Brise, to help with our ability to maintain frozen. But we can also use the Frost Blitz aspect instead as an alternative, which gives us additional casts of Frost Nova. As a second build, and an alternative to our Ice Shards, we have the Frozen Sarcophagus, a build that doubles down on our frozen talents while grabbing Deep Freeze, to fill in downtime between cooldowns and as an effective defensive to save us in a pinch. We'll also utilize the Conjuration skill Ice Blades in this build to decrease cooldowns of our other defensives, as well as Deep Freeze. Keep in mind, although this build was affected by the round of nerfs that hit Ice Blade, I still think it's worth mentioning. I'd like to thank you for watching one of our, but specifically my, first video. You can catch my Goblin brothers streaming on Twitch from the links below, and don't forget to leave a like, comment to tell me if you'll be playing Sorcerer on release, and subscribe if this is something you enjoyed and wish to see more of. Stay greedy out there, sorcerers, and gobble gobble.